Hello. Today we have with us former Union Minister and senior journalist Mr. Arun Shourie, who was in the news recently for his comments on the strike that India carried out against Pakistan last year being farcical. So a lot of people have criticized him, but we would like to know from Mr. Shourie what he actually thinks about it. Welcome to the Wire, sir. Sir, during the launch of Mr. Saifuddin Soze's book on Kashmir, you were reported as saying that the surgical strike which the Indian Army carried out last year in Pakistan was farcical. So what exactly did you mean by that? Because this statement has come in for severe criticism from a lot of quarters.
I think people twist words.
Yeah.
I have said at that time, said many times in between, saying it again now, that it's not that the strike did not take place, but to use a strike which takes place sometimes, occasionally, and I know from personal knowledge, it took place during Atalji's time also, when Mr. Jaswant Singh and George Fernandez were the ministers. You should not, use it for propaganda purposes, as was being done. Because then you are making out of a necessary instrument a farce. And that is what makes it a farcical strike. Not that the strike didn't take place, or that the strike is not necessary, or that the strike is not carried out efficiently. No, nothing like that. But when you make it a propaganda device, a good example, you will recall that in Bhutan, we go against Ulfa, a strike. Okay? It isn't done, you say it is done by the Bhutanese army, but it's obviously done by cooperation of both armies. You don't talk about it. Similarly, there was a strike in Myanmar. It was almost certainly done, as Venu will remind us, with the tacit understanding of the Myanmar army that you please look the other way, we will deal with these fellows. But when we started proclaiming, we have done a strike, naturally the Myanmar government has to say, no, nothing like this happened. The same way here. Yes, they have done something diabolic and evil in Pathankot, in Uri, so you must send a signal to the Pakistan security establishment. And that is what was done. But when you start proclaiming that this is evidence कि भाई अब हमने उनका मुंह तोड़ जवाब दे दिया और उनकी कमर तोड़ दी, तो naturally फिर आप उसको compel कर रहे हो कि वो भी दिखाएगा that he also has a 56-inch chest. Right. So second thing I had said at that time, and I have repeated again, that you see, a strike like this does not deal with the main problem, let us say in that case, of infiltration. For that, you should secure our bases. You should secure our border. And you see what the Vice Chief has said in his testimony to the Defense Committee of Parliament, headed by none other than General Khanduri of the BJP himself. What did they say? The Vice Chief said that we asked for that our bases are being attacked, our cantonments are being attacked in Pathankot, Uri, and please give us money. And the budget showed that there's a provision of, I think it's 17,400 some crores. But he told the committee that actually speaking, they say this in the budget, but actually not 1 rupee has been given. There's not a provision of 1 rupee in that. And the committee headed by General Khanduri then says that hearing the Vice Chief's testimony, we are aghast. So that is what you should have done. Protecting our bases, not tom-tomming a strike.
So how was, you made a mention of how during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's regime also our forces had gone inside Pakistan and carried out a similar operation. How was that different from this one?
In the sense, I would not like to talk about it because the army doesn't talk about those things. The government didn't talk about it. The defense ministers did not talk about it. Because what is the need? You want to give a signal to the other army, you have given it, finished. But when you pervert it to, then you are using the army.
There's some mention that during that operation we had brought back some
Yeah,
notebooks and
mementos.
all with
Yes,
mementos.
so I
which
would not
carried-
like to say anything
okay.
about it, but the army knows what it did.
Okay. And likewise, sir, when in 2015, following killing of 18 of our soldiers in Manipur, when Indian Army had gone inside Myanmar and carried out an operation in which a large number of NSC and M group militants were killed. So at that point of time, Myanmar was somehow compelled to say that no, the operation never took place.
Precisely because we started tom-tomming it. Supposing you had kept quiet.
Right.
Now you have killed the culprits, and the other side knows you have given a signal to the rebels that you will not stand nonsense. That's the purpose. But you want to use this for propaganda
So
purposes.
problem lies in making political capital out of it.
Out of it, yes.
Okay.
These are necessary instruments. Quietly, every intelligence agency does these things. Every armed force does these things. We have been doing them.
During the book launch, you also made a mention of how there was no improvement on the ground situation, and how sooner or later people would realize that Kashmir unrest would affect the entire nation. So, what exactly did you
You see,
mean
there
by
are two, three things if we want to go into this.
Yeah.
One is that if you look at the body counts,
Yeah.
yes, from the 1990s when 3,000 or 4,000 people were being killed, and now 135% are being killed, or 150 people in a year, it is naturally very different. But that has been different for a long time. And second, that in this, the maximum number of persons who are killed are militants, then our security personnel, and then civilians. And many of the civilians are actually being killed on the border by cross-border firing. So these are the good things. The difficult things are, where the situation has become much worse, is first that most of the militants who are now wielding the gun are not from across Pakistan, but they are our own people. This is terrible. Second is that a cycle has started. You see, a person is killed precisely because he is a local boy. At his funeral, large number of civilians turn out, shouting slogans, pelting stones, there is anger. Then 2 or 3 persons in the procession will then get so agitated, they will say, I am getting out of this, I am joining the militants. So this becomes a Gaza-like self-feeding cycle. This is very bad. The third point, which was made to me by a very great expert on our national security, he said that now leaders of political parties as well as leaders of the Hurriyat have lost legitimacy. And therefore, we are even farther away from starting a political process than we were earlier on. So that's a bad thing. So these are the real developments in Kashmir which are troublesome.
Following the collapse of the coalition government over there, there are indications that the forces might might adopt a more aggressive stance. So you were quoted as saying that it would not be wise to use foolish force.
No, that's
Over
not
there,
it. No,
right?
no, actually, contrary.
Yeah.
I said that the first thing to realize is that anybody who wields a gun will have to be dealt with by a gun.
Okay.
And that does not mean using minimum force as everybody says. You have to use overwhelming force.
Okay.
But you must not use force foolishly. And I gave an example that supposing you can use a water cannon and you use tear gas, or you can use tear gas and you use pellets, which blind youngsters, then that is not minimum force or maximum force. It is the foolish use of force.
Excessive force, basically.
Not excessive.
Okay.
It's the foolish use of force. That instead of doing this, you are doing something foolish. That was the point.
And sir, you've also said that the Modi government is basically election oriented and it doesn't have policies. It only believes in events and campaigns. So
Two things. I think, firstly, it is event-driven. I mean, one is that it believes only in events, and you can see Mr. Modi doing all these events all the time. But the other is that its so-called policy, it has no policy on Pakistan, on China, on Nepal, on Sri Lanka, on Maldives, certainly not on Kashmir, not on banks. So, it has no policy. It is event-driven. If something happened at Nirav Modi, तो जी banking के बारे में हम ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, वो करेंगे. इसी तरह, in the case of Pakistan, in the case of Kashmir, you said, okay, I will have a ceasefire. Now, obviously, when you have a ceasefire, when you declare a ceasefire, you have something long-term in mind. For instance, I remember Mr. Advani's phrase at the time when they, in the NDA government, had announced a ceasefire. He said, we must get people accustomed to life in peace. What a peaceful life is, so that they will not then support the resurrection of violence. It was a very interesting remark. Now here you declare a ceasefire, two persons are killed, you call off the ceasefire and say, now see, I am a tiger. Then you are event driven, and that means that what you will do is in the hands of the other fellow. If he kills two persons, he knows you will finish the ceasefire. That was the point.
So finally, considering that probably the remarks you made have not been taken in the right spirit, how do you view this release of the latest video from the army on the surgical strike, which came out yesterday?
Well, I mean, I don't know. That reflects. I can't understand how anybody would doubt that there was a strike. So if they are releasing a video now, that only shows, it does not prove that there was a strike. There was a strike, of course, everybody knows. But it shows you something about the government's own assessment of its own lack of credibility. That nobody believes us, therefore bhai video nikalo. What a sorry state of affairs. First you exaggerate a thing, then you see, oh, nobody believes me. And then therefore you say, no, video. Next they will bring some certificates from the Pakistan army saying, yes, there was a strike. That just shows their own assessment that they have no credibility.
Okay. Right, sir. Thank you so much for joining us at the Wire. Thank you, sir.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.